Andrew Carter wiped the sweat from his brow as he adjusted the settings on the exterior panel of the mining colony's communication dish. The harsh winds of the planet whipped around him, a constant reminder of the colony's vulnerability. "Almost got it, boss," called out Miguel, his assistant, who was shielding his eyes against the gritty gusts. "Almost," Andrew replied, his voice carrying over the howl of the wind. "This thing's more sensitive than a diplomat at a peace talk." Miguel laughed, then gestured towards the horizon. "You ever wonder if we're really alone out here?" Andrew followed Miguel's gaze, staring into the vast, starry expanse. "Every day, but let's hope if anyone's out there, they're friendly." Their light conversation was cut short by a sudden alert from Andrew's wrist communicator. "Carter here," he said, tapping the device. "Andrew, we're detecting an unknown ship entering our airspace," reported Sarah, the colony's head of security, her voice tense. Andrew's eyes narrowed. "On my way." He sealed the panel and descended the ladder quickly, Miguel right behind him. They hurried to the control center, a dome-shaped building at the heart of the colony. Inside, the atmosphere was charged. Screens flickered with incoming data, and the central holographic display showed the trajectory of the approaching vessel. "Any response to our hails?" Andrew asked, as he approached Sarah. "None. It's completely silent," she answered, her focus fixed on the monitors. "Visuals coming up now," said Jonas, the technician, adjusting the controls. The screen flickered, then displayed the approaching ship, a sleek, menacing craft unlike any they had seen before. "Definitely not one of ours," Miguel muttered, his expression turning serious. The room fell silent as they watched the ship descend towards their planet. Andrew felt a mixture of anticipation and dread. "Positions, everyone. We might have company." The ground trembled as the alien ship landed just outside the colony. Clad in his protective gear, Andrew led a small team, including Miguel and Jonas, to the landing site. They moved cautiously, weapons ready but not raised, a gesture of cautious diplomacy. As they approached, the ship's ramp descended with a hiss, revealing a figure silhouetted against the bright interior light. The alien was tall, with imposing armor and a sleek helmet that obscured its face. "I am Verica of the Tharkari," the figure announced, voice modulated through her helmet, stepping forward into the light. "This planet and its resources are now under the dominion of the Tharkari Empire." Andrew stopped in his tracks, his team tensing around him. "I'm Andrew Carter, chief engineer of this colony. We're a peaceful community. We don't want any trouble," he replied, trying to keep the situation under control. Verica tilted her head slightly, assessing him. "You will surrender your resources and submit to our authority. Resistance is not advisable." Andrew glanced back at his team, seeing their uncertainty and fear. He looked back at Verica, his stance firm. "We're not in the habit of surrendering to anyone. Maybe we can come to an understanding." Verica stepped closer, her presence dominating. "There can be no understanding between the conqueror and the conquered." Miguel stepped forward, his voice steady. "There's always room for negotiation." Verica paused, seemingly considering his words. Finally, she said, "You have 1 day to comply. Do not test our patience." With that, she turned and walked back into her ship, the ramp closing behind her. As the alien ship took off, Andrew turned to his team. "All right, let's get back. We need a plan, and fast." They hurried back to the colony, minds racing with possibilities. The night ahead would be a long one, filled with strategy and uncertain alliances. But one thing was clear: they would stand their ground. The night had been long and fraught with tense planning. Andrew Carter hadn't slept, his mind occupied with scenarios that ranged from diplomatic negotiations to outright defense strategies. He paced the control center, glancing occasionally at the holographic displays that monitored the alien ship's hovering presence just beyond the colony's perimeter. Jonas, his eyes bleary from lack of sleep, updated the radar readings. "It's just sitting there, like a hawk watching its prey," he murmured, adjusting the controls to zoom in on the hovering vessel. Miguel, who had been checking their weapon supplies, joined Andrew at the main console. "You really think they'll just let us negotiate?" he asked, his tone skeptical. "It's worth a try," Andrew replied, though his voice lacked conviction. "We need to establish some form of communication. Show them we're not just going to roll over." Just then, Sarah entered the room, her expression grim. "They're moving. Looks like they're sending someone down." "All right, let's greet our guest," Andrew said, nodding to his team. They grabbed their gear and headed outside, forming a welcoming party by the colony's main gate. The morning air was crisp, the sky a clear blue, a stark contrast to the tension that gripped Andrew's chest. They watched as a small shuttle detached from the main ship and made its way towards the ground. Dust and debris swirled as it landed gently a few meters away from the colony's entrance. The door of the shuttle opened, and Varika stepped out, this time without her helmet, revealing her stark features, sharp, angular, and imposing. Two more Tharkri warriors flanked her, their armor similar yet distinctly marked with symbols of rank. "We wish to speak with your leader," Varika declared, her gaze fixed on Andrew. "I'm here," Andrew responded, stepping forward. "I'm willing to talk, but we won't submit to threats." Varika studied him for a moment, then nodded slightly. "Very well, human. I am intrigued by your resilience. Follow me." She turned, indicating that Andrew should enter the shuttle. Sarah stepped closer, her hand resting on her sidearm. "Andrew, are you sure about this?" He looked back, offering a reassuring nod. "Keep the comms open. I'll try to find us a way out of this." With a deep breath, Andrew followed Varika into the shuttle. The interior was stark, functional, with seating that seemed to be molded from the ship itself. He sat across from Varika, the two guards standing silently by the door. "As you can see, we are not barbarians," Varika began, her voice calmer now. "But we are determined. Your planet is strategically vital to the Tharkri Empire. Why should we spare your colony?" Andrew met her gaze, his mind racing. "Because we can be useful. What does your empire value? Resources, information, manpower? We have skilled workers, advanced technology. There's more to gain from us as allies than as subjugated foes." Varika considered his words, her expression unreadable. "Interesting. You propose a trade, then? Your services for our protection?" "Precisely," Andrew replied, hoping his gamble would pay off. Varika leaned back, her eyes narrowing. "I will consider your proposal. However," she paused, her tone hardening, "to ensure your cooperation, you will remain with us as a guarantee." Before Andrew could protest, the guards moved forward, their stance leaving no room for argument. "Wait, we agreed to talk," Andrew exclaimed, but Varika raised a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "This is not a negotiation, human, not yet. You will stay with us until I decide your colony's fate." The shuttle door closed and the craft lifted off, leaving the colony behind. Andrew sat in silence, realizing the gravity of his decision. Now aboard the alien vessel, he was not just a negotiator, but a captive. His fate, and that of his colony, hanging in the balance. The shuttle journey was short, but fraught with tension. As they approached the Tharkri ship, Andrew could see the scale of their fleet through the shuttle's small window. Dozens of ships, armed and ready, a display of military might that left little doubt about their capability for conquest. His heart sank. The situation was far more serious than he'd initially realized. Upon docking, Andrew was briskly escorted through the corridors of the ship, the stark metallic walls giving nothing away about the intentions of his captors. Varika led the way, her stride confident and purposeful. Eventually, they entered what appeared to be a command center, filled with screens and alien technology that buzzed with activity. "You will stay here," Varika said, turning to face him. "Observe if you wish. Perhaps understanding our strength will convince you of the futility of resistance." Andrew was left under the watchful eyes of the guards as Varika departed to attend to her duties. Despite the tension, he couldn't help but be fascinated by the alien technology surrounding him. He took the opportunity to learn, watching the Tharkri operate their systems, silently gathering information that might prove useful later. Hours passed, and Andrew's initial apprehension gave way to a grudging respect for the efficiency and order of the Tharkri. Yet he remained vigilant, looking for any sign of weakness, any detail that might help his people. Suddenly the ship jolted violently, alarms blaring. The Tharkri scrambled, their calm demeanor shattered by the chaos of an unexpected attack. Andrew was knocked off his feet, catching glimpses of the external monitors showing explosions rippling through one of the nearby Tharkri vessels. In the confusion, one of the guards approached Andrew, his weapon still directed at him but his stance betraying a hint of desperation. "You, human, you must come with us. It's not safe here." They hurried through the corridors, dodging debris and rushing personnel. Andrew was taken to a secure room where Varrica was already coordinating a response to the attack. Her face was a mask of focus and command, but her eyes flicked to Andrew with a spark of something else, perhaps uncertainty. "Varrica," one of her officers called out. "The attackers, they've breached the lower decks." "Secure all entry points. I will not let this ship fall," Varrica ordered, then turned to Andrew. "It seems we are both in danger now." Andrew nodded, understanding the gravity of their shared plight. "Who's attacking you?" "The Zaltrax, rival scavengers," she explained, her voice steady despite the ongoing assault. "They prey on what they perceive as weakened targets. They must have thought the negotiations a sign of distraction." "Can I help?" Andrew asked, surprising even himself. "I have experience with defensive strategies." Varrica regarded him for a moment, her gaze assessing. Finally, she nodded. "Very well, your insights could be valuable." Together, they worked to fortify the ship's defenses. Andrew suggested rerouting power to critical areas and fortifying their surveillance feeds to anticipate the attackers' movements. Varrica quickly implemented his suggestions, her orders precise and authoritative. As they strategized, a temporary truce formed between them, born of necessity and mutual survival. Andrew could see the respect in Varrica's eyes as he helped repel the Zaltrax boarders, her earlier disdain tempered by his evident skill and bravery. Hours later, when the last of the Zaltrax ships retreated, defeated, Varrica turned to Andrew, her expression complex. "You have proven yourself human," she said, her voice low. "Not just as a strategist, but as a warrior. This changes things." Andrew met her gaze, his own feelings a mix of wariness and an unexpected respect. "Glad I could help. Maybe now we can discuss my original proposal under better terms." Varrica nodded, the hint of a smile playing at the edges of her lips. "Yes, we will talk, Andrew of Earth. We will talk." As the ship settled back into routine, Andrew knew that the dynamic between him and Varrica had shifted fundamentally. They had fought side by side, and from that shared struggle, a new possibility for understanding had emerged. A chance, perhaps, for a genuine alliance. The aftermath of the attack left the Thurkery ship in disarray, but it also brought a newfound sense of collaboration between Andrew and Varrica. As they walked through the corridors, assessing the damage and coordinating repairs, the air between them was charged with a mutual respect that had been hard-earned in the heat of battle. "Your strategies were effective, Andrew. I underestimated your capabilities," Varrica admitted as they paused to observe a crew fixing a breach in the hull. Andrew nodded, appreciating her candor. "And I underestimated the resolve of the Thurkery. You fight not just with strength, but with honor." Varrica looked at him, a flicker of pride in her eyes. "Honor is the backbone of our culture. It defines us, just as your tenacity defines yours." Their conversation was interrupted by a Thurkery engineer approaching them. "Commander Varrica, the main engine suffered significant damage. We need more hands on deck to fix it before we can make any major maneuvers." Varrica turned to Andrew, her expression serious. "We could use your expertise here, if you are willing." Andrew agreed without hesitation, motivated by a desire to further prove his worth, and perhaps, he realized, to extend the unexpected camaraderie he had found with Varrica. Together, they headed to the engine room, where the damage was worse than expected. The room was vast, filled with complex machinery and wires, much of it foreign to Andrew's eyes, but the fundamental principles of engineering were universal. He worked alongside Varrica and her crew, directing repairs with a mix of human ingenuity and Thurkery technology. As they worked, Andrew and Varrica shared more about their respective worlds. Andrew talked about Earth, about the oceans and mountains that he missed, about the bustling cities and quiet countryside. Varrica listened intently, her usual stoic demeanor softened by glimpses into a world so different from her own. "In many ways, your planet sounds beautiful," Varrica remarked during a brief pause in their work. "It is unfortunate that our first encounter had to be under such circumstances." "Yeah, it's not all beautiful, but it's home," Andrew responded, handing her a tool. Maybe when this is all over, there could be a chance for you to see it, not as a conqueror, but as a guest. Varika considered his words, her expression unreadable. Perhaps, she finally said, the idea seeming to take root. As the repairs neared completion, the tension of their initial meeting seemed like a distant memory. They had found a rhythm, working seamlessly together, and Andrew couldn't help but feel a strange sense of belonging. It was a feeling he hadn't expected to find so many light years away from Earth, and certainly not aboard an alien warship. When the last panel was secured, and the engine hummed back to life, Varika turned to Andrew, a rare smile breaking across her face. "You have done more than just repair a ship today, Andrew. You have started to mend a bridge between our peoples." After the engine repair, Varika and Andrew returned to the command center, where the mood had shifted from crisis to cautious optimism. They had managed to restore the ship to full operational status, and the crew's morale was visibly improved by the day's successes. As they walked through the corridors, Varika's communicator buzzed with an urgent message. She listened intently, her expression growing sterner with each passing moment. Andrew watched her closely, sensing the change in her demeanor. "We've intercepted communications from the Zoltrax," Varika explained once the message ended. "It seems this attack was not a mere scavenging mission. They're being directed by a larger force." Andrew's brow furrowed. "Directed? By whom?" Varika motioned for him to follow her to a secure briefing room. Once inside, she activated a series of screens displaying intercepted messages and tactical data. "There's a coalition of species unknown to us till now. They call themselves the Krillak. It seems they've been orchestrating attacks across this sector, destabilizing systems, toppling governments." Andrew absorbed the information, a chill running down his spine. "So, we're just a pawn in their larger game?" "Precisely," Varika confirmed. "And I believe they won't stop here. Both our peoples are in danger." The gravity of the situation settled between them. Andrew thought of his colony, suddenly feeling its vulnerability more acutely than ever. "What's our next move?" "We need to warn your colony and prepare. If we can show the Krillak that we stand together, perhaps we can deter further aggression." Andrew nodded. "Let's do it. But how will we convince my people? After all, we started as enemies." Varika's gaze met his, firm and resolute. "I will go with you. They need to see we are united in this. It's our best chance." The decision made, they organized a swift return to the colony. As their shuttle approached the planet, Andrew radioed Sarah, explaining the situation as best he could. There was a long silence after he finished. "Are you sure about this, Andrew?" Sarah's voice finally crackled over the comm. "I trust her, Sarah. It's our only shot at stopping what's coming." The shuttle landed smoothly, and Varika stepped out alongside Andrew, her appearance causing a stir among the gathered colonists. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, but all fell silent as Andrew raised his hands for attention. "People of the colony," he began, his voice echoing slightly in the open air. "This is Varika, commander of the Tharkari. We've come to realize that our true enemy is not each other, but the Krillak, who seek to destroy us both." Varika stepped forward, her voice carrying clearly. "I stand with Andrew and your colony against this threat. The Tharkari offer our support, our technology, and our warriors. Together, we can protect our worlds." The colonists exchanged looks, the initial shock giving way to cautious consideration. Sarah stepped forward, extending her hand to Varika. "If Andrew trusts you, that's good enough for me. Let's plan our defense." The meeting evolved into a strategic session, with humans and Tharkari mapping out potential responses to the Krillak threat. Andrew and Varika worked side by side, their earlier encounters on the ship having laid a foundation of mutual respect and cooperation that now extended to their respective peoples. As the plans took shape, Andrew realized how much had changed since Varika's ship first appeared in their skies. They had come full circle, from adversaries to allies, united by a common enemy and a shared goal of survival. As dawn broke over the colony, the air was thick with anticipation. Andrew and Varika had finalized their plans and now supervised the final preparations for the preemptive strike against the Krillak operational bases. The ground teams busied themselves loading the last of the munitions into the joint human Tharkari assault crafts. Varrica, clad in her combat suit, approached Andrew with a final checklist. "We've synchronized our navigation and weapon systems with your technology," she stated, her voice crisp and commanding. "The first wave is ready to launch within the hour." Andrew, checking the readiness of the human pilots, nodded in agreement. "Our crews are as prepared as they'll ever be. Let's make sure this counts." Miguel came jogging over, a tablet in his hand. "Andrew, Varrica, the surveillance drones have just picked up a spike in enemy communications around the target area. Looks like they might be on alert." Varrica's eyes narrowed. "Then we have the element of surprise no longer. We must act swiftly." Andrew clapped Miguel on the shoulder. "Get to your craft, Miguel. Keep your comms open and watch out for any flanking maneuvers. We can't afford any mistakes." Miguel nodded solemnly and headed towards the flight line. Turning back to Varrica, Andrew felt the gravity of the moment. "Once we start this, there's no turning back." Varrica placed a hand on his arm, her touch firm. "We are ready, Andrew. Because of your leadership, we stand a chance. Let us bring this fight to them." Together, they walked to the command center, a hastily converted operations room equipped with both human and Tharkri technology. Screens lined the walls, displaying real-time satellite imagery and ship diagnostics. As the first wave of ships lifted off, the room held its breath. Andrew felt every heartbeat, every second stretch out, as he watched the blips on the screen move towards the target. "First contact in 3 minutes, announced a Tharkri technician, his voice steady. Andrew stood next to Varrica, watching the operation unfold. "When this is over," he began, his voice low, "I hope we can find a reason to maintain this alliance under better circumstances." Varrica turned to him, her expression unreadable. "So do I, Andrew. There has been too much conflict. Perhaps it is time for peace." The screens flickered as the first signs of engagement lit up the displays. Reports came flooding in, initial strikes successful, enemy defenses destabilized, minimal casualties. Andrew's plan was working, but the battle was far from over. "Second wave, go," Varrica ordered, her command echoing through the room. As the battle raged on, Andrew and Varrica coordinated the movements of their forces, adjusting tactics in real time, responding to the fluid nature of space combat. Each report of success brought a collective sigh of relief, but the tension never fully eased. Hours later, as the final reports came in, the atmosphere in the command center shifted. The operation was a success. The Krillok bases had been significantly damaged, their ability to launch counterattacks severely impaired. Andrew slumped slightly, the adrenaline fading. Varrica looked over at him, a smile breaking through her usual stoicism. "You did well, Andrew. We did well." He managed a tired grin. "We did indeed. Let's just hope it's enough to turn the tide." As they began planning the next steps, Andrew knew that their shared victory had sown the seeds of a lasting partnership, one that might stand as a beacon for potential peace between their worlds. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but for the first time Andrew felt that together they could face whatever came next. The successful strike on the Krillok bases brought a short-lived relief to Andrew and Varrica. They knew the true test was still ahead, defending the colony against the inevitable counterattack. The Krillok were now aware of their alliance and would not underestimate their combined forces again. The command center was buzzing with activity as they prepared for what many believed would be the decisive confrontation. Varrica and Andrew huddled over the strategic displays, refining every aspect of their defense. They had already integrated their systems and defenses, but every sensor sweep and scout report was critical. "Reports indicate a large Krillok fleet amassing at these coordinates," said Varrica, pointing at a sector not far from their current location. "They will be here within hours." Andrew felt the weight of the moment. "We've done everything we can to prepare. Our people are ready, and our defenses are as strong as they can be." Varrica looked at him, her eyes intense. "Your leadership has inspired both our people. No matter what happens, this alliance you've built will be remembered." Their moment was interrupted by an urgent communication from a scout ship. "Enemy fleet advancing at high speed. Estimated time of arrival, less than 2 hours." The room tensed up. Andrew took a deep breath and addressed the room. All hands, this is it. Positions, everyone. Stay sharp, stay focused. We fight not just for our homes, but for the future of our alliance. The colony's defenses lit up, shield generators humming to life as artillery positions were manned. Andrew and Verika took their places in the command center, surrounded by their combined crew. Outside, the sky began to darken as the Krillak fleet approached. The first wave of the attack was brutal. Krillak fighters swarmed the skies, met by fierce resistance from the joint human-Tharkari forces. Explosions lit up the horizon as Andrew coordinated the colony's defenses, calling out commands and responding to reports from the field. Verika, meanwhile, directed the Tharkari warships in orbit, managing their defensive formations and counterattacks. Her voice was calm but forceful, cutting through the chaos with precision. The battle raged for hours, the sky a canvas of fire and destruction. Just when it seemed the colony's defenses might be overwhelmed, a squadron led by Miguel managed a daring maneuver, taking out the Krillak command ship. The enemy's formation broke, giving the defenders a crucial advantage. With the tide turning, Andrew felt a surge of hope. "Push them back," he shouted into the comms. "Now's our chance." The defenders rallied, driving the Krillak forces further back. Slowly, the enemy began to retreat, their numbers dwindling under the relentless assault of the Allied forces. As the last of the Krillak ships warped away in defeat, the command center erupted in cheers. Andrew and Verika exchanged a look of relief and profound respect. They had done more than survive. They had won a decisive victory. "Thank you, Andrew," Verika said, her voice filled with gratitude. "Without your strategies and leadership, this would not have been possible." After the battle, the atmosphere in the colony was one of weary relief mixed with a newfound sense of hope. The victory had not just secured their immediate safety, but had also cemented the alliance between humanity and the Tharkari. Andrew and Verika stood together overlooking the colony from the command center, now bustling with activity focused on rebuilding and strengthening their defenses for any future threats. "We did it, Verika. We actually did it," Andrew said, allowing a small, tired smile to cross his face as he watched the crews working below. Verika nodded, her expression contemplative. "Yes, we did. But this is just the beginning, Andrew. The Krillak will not forget this defeat. We must be vigilant and ready." Andrew turned to her, his gaze serious. "Then we'll be ready. We'll continue to build on what we've started here. Our alliance can be a model for others, a testament to what can be achieved when different peoples come together." Verika looked out over the colony, her eyes reflecting the lights that flickered in the growing darkness. "I would like that. And perhaps once things settle, there could be a chance for me to visit Earth, as you once suggested." "I'd like that," Andrew replied. "And I think Earth would welcome you. After all, they need to meet the alien who fought alongside their own and helped save a colony on the frontier." Their conversation was interrupted by Sarah, who approached them with updates on the reconstruction efforts and early warning systems being established around the colony. "We're making good progress," she reported. "Also, there have been messages from Earth. They're relieved and grateful for the victory. They're very interested in formally discussing alliances with the Tharkari." Verika turned to Andrew. "It seems we have paved the way for something greater than either of us expected." "Indeed we have," Andrew agreed, feeling a profound sense of accomplishment and optimism about the future. In the days that followed, the colony transformed. What had once been a remote outpost was now a beacon of collaboration and unity. Tharkari and human technologies were not only coexisting, but merging in ways that benefited both sides. As they worked together, barriers broke down and friendships formed, changing the fabric of their community. On the day of the official treaty signing between the Tharkari and humans, Andrew stood beside Verika and other leaders from both peoples. The document they signed was more than just a peace treaty. It was a declaration of mutual respect and cooperation for the future. As the signing ceremony concluded, the crowd erupted in applause, a sound that carried across the colony, ringing out like a bell of hope and renewal. Andrew and Verika exchanged a look, a silent acknowledgement of the road they had traveled and the journey still ahead. Later, as the celebrations continued, Andrew found himself standing alone for a moment, looking up at the stars. He thought about the journey, about the battles fought, and the friendships forged. It was hard to believe how much had changed, how much he had changed. Varika joined him, her presence a comforting constant in his new world. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "About how far we've come," Andrew replied, turning to face her. "And how far we still have to go." Varika smiled, her hand finding his. "Together, though, we go together." Together, indeed. As they stood side by side, the future seemed not only possible but promising. In the distance, the lights of the colony shone brightly against the night sky, a symbol of their enduring alliance and the enduring hope for a peaceful universe.